This podcast provides a platform for our guests to express their own personal views and opinions. Some or all of these views and opinions may not be shared by Ben and/or Yoel.
Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast,
the podcast where we highlight stories of dads on the other side of divorce
to inspire and give strength to dads going through it.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Yoel.
Welcome back to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. You can find us on toodadtoquit.com, Too Dad to Quit on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the places. We are now on Spotify video and YouTube music app, and we are expanding as we go. And don't forget to rate the podcast, share the podcast. Let us know in the comments your feedback about the podcast. We want to hear your questions. We want to address your questions. We want to bring on experts to answer your questions. And we are really, really excited to get into this episode. This will be episode 25. We have come to a conclusion of season 1. We've had 20 plus amazing guests. The podcast that was just a thought in my mind from this little hat that I bought is now a real flourishing thing. And we, when you start a podcast, it's kind of, is it going to work? Are people going to listen? And I can tell you that we are now in 6 to 7 countries of continuous listeners and subscribers. Germany is now making its way up the list, and we've consistently held on to the 20+% women that are listening to the podcast. And we're really excited. We're changing up our content. We've got the clips channel going. We've got constant clips dropping on Facebook, and we're going to be expanding that to Instagram. And hopefully, getting this wisdom out from our guests. There's a lot of wisdom there and a lot of great discussions. And the feedback has been really, really great. We've had some of our guests reach out that their families didn't know half of the stuff that they said on the podcast, and they enjoyed how vulnerable they got. And it's opened up some new family connections. And, we're really excited to see where this goes next. So in this episode, what we decided at the end of the season is that we're going to actually highlight all of the Too Dad to Quit moments that have been shared across all the episodes. I think there's a lot of wisdom in all of them. And it's very important to, the big things or the small things, to just appreciate those moments that you have as a dad. And we're really excited to put those all in one place where you can listen to those and get that inspiration as you need it.
Yeah, and kudos to you, Ben, for all your unbelievable perseverance in this, the brainchild of launching the idea, from idea to action to fulfillment. And it's really unbelievable to have reached this milestone of a completed season full of 25 episodes. I don't think, and obviously the goal isn't to toot our own horns, but I don't know if people understand what goes into a podcast. I certainly didn't before getting involved in one. And not only does it obviously involve a lot of the tech stuff, which you're a master at, but also, getting those guests, having people like our guests that are gracious enough to come on. So to have 24, I guess, I think it was 24 plus our banter episode, which was recent, a recent episode, but I think it was 24 guests that we've had. And that's really, I'm really, really grateful to them for joining. And like you said, Ben, there have been so many different takeaways, whether it's guys that are expressing the fact that they've been in pain, guys that talk about how they were crying at some point. And obviously that's just the sort of the downside of some of the painful part of the divorce process. But the point of this podcast is to talk about people and guys on the other side. And we've seen guys that are just thriving. They're thriving in their family life. There's guys that have been remarried. There's guys that are happily in new relationships. There's guys that are thriving in their businesses and their careers. A lot of these guys at one point didn't have a job. They were sleeping on friends' sofas. They were really down and out. We've had guests from...
We've had our first Too Dad to Quit baby from Uriel. So
wow, yeah, congratulations, Yoel, right, our first Too Dad to Quit baby. That's great. And and we've also had experts on. We've had relationship experts on, and we've had a family mediator on. So really from all walks of life, and I look forward to the next season and just learning from everybody.
Yeah, so for all of you listening out there, we couldn't have done it without you, and we can't wait to get you into season 2 and what we have lined up for you. We got some really cool, amazing things going on there. And we really can't thank you enough for listening to us, banter, listen to our guests.
Someone's got to
we're-
listen to Ben because I don't. So someone's got to listen to you, Ben. So that's
and we and we are only getting started. So
yes,
let's
we are.
call this one the inspiration episode and enjoy. Noah Joseph. He is a car fanatic. He has 2 young children. So on a brighter note, we love to ask our guests to share their most too dad to quit moment, like a moment where you were proudest and you were like, all right, I'm dadding, I'm killing this.
Yeah. It's it would be hard to pinpoint one, but I was thinking about this, and one, I don't know if it's the definitive too dad to quit moment, but certainly one that comes to mind was a weekend like this when the kids were at their mother's place, and it was right before sundown when the Sabbath would be starting, and I'd have been turning off my phone and everything, like been incommunicado, but half an hour to spare, my ex-wife calls me and she says, and she's in a panic, she says our daughter has gotten her head stuck in the banister.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy, that happened to my older brother also.
Happens to a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And she seemed emotionally distressed about it, my ex-wife.
Yeah.
And she couldn't figure out
What else?
calmly what to do, and she's like, can you come and help? And thankfully we live very close by. She was a little bit further then, but still, I hopped on my bike and got there. She was shocked at how fast I got there. I dropped what I was doing to come and rescue my daughter. And for me it was very logistical,
Right.
I need to get over there, I need to help resolve this situation and free my daughter's poor stuck noggin. But it was outside in front of the house where they were living, and so my daughter could see me coming up the walkway. She saw me ride in on my bike, and she could probably hear the relief in her mother's voice when she saw me there, and she's standing there crying her eyes out. She was a little girl, and she's stuck. And I just I calmly looked at the angles and just kind of
Right.
popped her. I'm like, she got her head in there.
Right. It's got to come
It's
out.
not so stuck that it's now getting swollen. That can happen. You put your finger into a soda can or something and it swells up and now you can't get it out. Which happened to my brother. It was hilarious. He was a grown man. My daughter's
He was,
son. So he's not anymore. I looked at it as calmly as I could, and figured out which way she had gotten her head in, and got it back out, and it pressed a little bit, but didn't really hurt her. And everybody was so relieved, and my daughter looked at me, she's very attached to her mother. Obviously, a lot of parents are, kids are towards their mothers. There's nothing like mom, which is something that I repeat to myself in other instances. And there was this primal, you could see this primal connection between me and my daughter, that I had just come and rescued her.
Saved her
And
life.
she, that's what it seemed like to her. And she reached out to me, I had to come around, and she reached out to me and leapt into my arms and said bye-bye, Ima. I'm going with this guy. And my hero who's just come and saved me.
The cape attached to your back and it's
Seriously.
waving in the wind.
Wow.
And it was it was a big point of moment of pride that I was able to help her, that I could get there that quickly, that she thought to call me to come and help, and then my daughter and I now had this bonding experience where she hadn't gone through the distress in the first place, but I felt very, very proud of that, and it was really touching how my daughter was then goodbye, Ima, I'm going with Dad now, with Abba. That was definitely a point that jumps out.
Yeah, that's amazing. Uriel Weiss, he has 3 boys, one 10-and-a-half-year-old from his first marriage, and one 3-and-a-half-year-old, and one 2-year-old with his new wife, Vivi. We like to ask and highlight, what was your most too dad to quit moment? That moment when you were I am the dad. I am the coolest dad in the whole world. I just did X, Y, and Z. we would love to hear that moment from you.
So I've been thinking about it. I don't, I guess when I started telling, it was something I started doing, he was maybe 4 or 5. Just telling my son I'm happy that he's my son. He was starting to get he was starting to understand that not every kid is in his situation. He's, he was something different, and I think he saw a lot of the problems that we were having. So I don't remember how it came up exactly, but I think he was said about something, and I told him, like, look, I'm happy I have you. I try to be good for you. Of course, I'm your father, and this isn't your job, but I am better because you are in my life, because you are my son. You are good. You are, you are positive. You are a good thing in my life.
Beautiful.
And I don't know, he got like this smile and like seemed like straightening himself up or whatever, and then he turned back to the screen, I'm sure. But
Beautiful. Rabbi Aaron David Poston, he was married for a number of years, had 6 kids.
Yep, 6 kids.
6 kids.
On our podcast, we like to get one too dad to quit moment, a moment where it was, dad can do it all, or I can't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm the dad. I need to be there. And we'd love to hear one of your too dad to quit moments.
Listen, I don't have a car. Now, I had 5 cars, but I don't have a car now, so I have a Corkinut. The Corkinut is a
Scooter.
It's a scooter. You can fold it up and take it on the train. So I do that a lot of times when I go to visit my kids. And just driving around Tel Aviv on that scooter, I would think that's too much of a dad to give up.
You look so cool, by the way, ripping down Jerusalem. So in Tel Aviv, man.
Yeah,
And I don't move for anybody, and I drive in the bike lane. But when there's no bike lane, I'm driving on the right side, as close to the curb, and I have people screaming out the window, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" With the tzitzis flying in Tel Aviv.
Fringes.
They're not so happy about
So
me.
you just yell back, "I'm going to visit my kids."
I wish.
And for all those that are listening, he looks like a rabbi, gray beard, tzitzit, the fringes hanging off, and I'm sure with the helmet on, flying down on a scooter would turn a bunch of heads.
A.B. Shama.
Not only is his dog walking story fascinating, but it's also amazing to see how much effort and enthusiasm, I would say, he puts into being a dad to his son. He's really intentional about it. And as has been the case with quite a few of our other guests, he himself was the child of divorce. His parents divorced when he was 10 months old. And he obviously made a decision that he's going to be very much involved in his son's life. He has joint custody with his ex-wife, 50-50. And he even says that's not enough. Like, he wants as much time as he can. He really wants to soak it in. And he's also very intentional about the lessons that he shares with his son.
We like to highlight your too dad to quit moment, the time when you felt as proud as you could be as a father and a dad, and you were like, "Man, I am super dad." We really like to highlight those moments.
Yeah, so there were quite a few. I think one of the most accomplished moments I had was when he was really young. Before, he wasn't completely toilet trained, and I pulled off a diaper change in the middle of the night without waking him. So then,
That is amazing.
and it was a full diaper, let me tell you. It was, so and I felt like super dad then. That was cool. But just like like just like building tents and making campfires and teaching him all those things, but like things that stand out, like having the materials for this week for his school, having both of the things he needed, being the only one in the class. I mean, I was like, yo, you're rocking that. But
Yeah.
not too long ago, I had something that should have made a real impression on him in his life, because I had given him, I pay a certain amount of child support, right? And he was going to his mom for the week, and I sent him along with it. And it's very rare. And then we normally never do this. We usually do it face to face. You know, I give her the money, she gives me a written receipt, and we're all good. But for whatever reason, it worked out, and I'm happy it worked out this way, because I gave him the money, he went to her, I guess it was like I don't know, whatever, at the beginning of the week. And that was it. I didn't think anything of it. Her and I were messaging, and she's like, by the way, there was some money missing. And I was like, well, I counted it twice, so you must have dropped it, right away. You must have dropped it. Well, I didn't count it wrong, that's for sure. So we didn't think anything of it. A few days later, my son was telling me about how he went to the store with his mom, and he was buying all of these things, and he bought her some junk food or something. And I was like, where'd you get the money? And he's like, he had a whole elaborate story. He found it on the way home from school. And when he said that, something clicked in me, like a little light bulb went off, because when I was his age. I had found some money. It was my sister's. I took it from her coat. I took a $20 bill from her coat one morning for school, and after school, now I wanted to spend it, and I had to come up with a story. So I said I found it on the way to school. So that's when it all came together, that it was too coincidental that she was missing some money and he had found money. So I asked him about it, and he denied it. He said he found it, and definitely not. So I knew that I had to approach it in the right way, and arguments happen over little details, like so you can never get to the center of the argument when you're arguing about details. So what I did was I just kind of questioned him, like sort of like a detective. I got all the information, and then I went back and I questioned him. So so I was like, really interesting, because on this day, and that was the other thing. He said he found it during the day when he was with me, and I was like, well, why wouldn't you tell me that? That seems like a milestone in life. This is the first time you ever found money. Right. That's quite a bit of money, and you didn't say anything. You kept it real quiet. So. So I had picked him up from karate, and I was driving him back to his mom's house, and we got there, and he got out, and I said, listen, I have a lot of clients, and I have the keys to a lot of the houses, and I have the codes and all these things, and the only way it works is because of trust, and trust is super important in relationships, and if you don't have trust, it all falls apart. And then I went on to tell him that at his age, I did the same thing with the I took some money and I claimed I found it. And I said, I'm sure the temptation was great. I know it's tempting. Temptation, this is real life. You don't expect it. People say like, oh, temptation. You don't know when it's going to sneak up on you. So I said, I'm sure the temptation is really good. Like, was really strong, but we need to have trust between us. And he said, it's like, yeah, I took the money. And I was like, awesome. Thank you for letting me know. This is what I need to know. We're going to pay that money back. And he apologized, and he was humbled after that. And I think that was a really good thing. But it taught me also that, like, I can't neglect the fact that he needs money, right? So he's a kid. He goes to school. He passes by the ice cream shops and the pizza shops, and everything costs money. And I realized that I wasn't giving him an allowance. Like if he needed money for something, I would get. If he needed something, I would buy it. If he didn't have spending money. He got maybe from a family member a holiday gift, but so ever since then I give him at the beginning of every week, I give him like, it's the equivalent of about $12. I give him 50 shekel, and you know, whether he's with me or with her, I give it to him at the beginning of every week, so he has a little cash. And then he doesn't, you know, and he knows again that to come to me, that I'll make sure that his needs are taken care of. And the most important thing is that he can trust me with real life things like stealing. You know what I mean?
And you were firm but fair.
Firm but fair.
I see
I
that.
didn't shame him. I mean, I can't stress this enough. Like, you know, going down the road of like, you know, fire and brimstone, it's like just not the way kids learn. So
Definitely not these days, if ever. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so firm but fair, you know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna happen again, you know what I mean? And of course, I was on the hook to pay his money back. I had to pay it
Well,
back.
didn't you just tell her it's all your son's fault? You know, it wasn't my fault. Throw him under the bus.
Well, that's the thing.
But that's really great.
I
That's
wanted to
great.
show him that I'll still be his superhero. And I said, because yeah, technically we should have ate that and she should have, you know, but I was like, I'll pay it and then you'll work it off. And then I handed it to him and he had to go hand it to her.
That's an amazing story. Amazing.
Thank you.
Zach Miller, he is an entrepreneur, a guy with a giant beard down past his chest. He has 5 kids. He was married for 25 years. Your too dad to quit moment, a moment where you were like, man, I am the dad. I don't want to do this. I don't want to wake up in the morning. I'm doing it anyway. Or a time when you felt the proudest. I actually just went on a trip with my kids to California, and we went to SeaWorld, and we went to 4 shows, and I got 3 of them as the volunteers. And so we got in the front, and each kid 3 out of 5 got into the shows, and I was like, all right, I made it. They're gonna never forget this. Yeah. So that was
Awesome. Awesome. I wish I had something like that. I mean, I do. I took my kids last fall to New York, 3 of them, to my nephew's wedding in Crown Heights, which was beautiful, and we had a great time. But that wouldn't be the time that I would choose as my too dad to quit. This one's a downer, but I feel like this is what I guess the whole thing was a downer. But, so my eldest, as I mentioned, had a really, really hard adolescence. And I guess this was around the time she was 16, 17 years old, particularly Motzei Shabbat, Saturday night, when the Jewish Sabbath goes out. That was a very stressful time for her because it meant going back into real life, into school. And she would have panic attacks. Well, we didn't realize there were panic attacks then, but that's essentially what would happen. And one thing that she felt could help her was going to a park in the middle of the night, and this is in the winter, and she would lay in the grass and she would hold trees just to like ground herself. She was very sensitive to trees and earth, and being able to feel like she's not floating away, that she's on the ground. And there was one time she asked me to do it. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was exhausted. I had to go to work the next day, and I just remember getting in the car with her and saying, I'm there, we're doing it, like no hesitation. And we went, and it was freezing. It was the middle of the winter. And I was sitting here in the middle of nowhere with my struggling daughter, and we were hugging trees together. And there was no reward. There was no, there was no Disney World at the end of that. I'm just saying and there was no one even to recognize of anyone like, wow, that was a good job, Zach. You did a good job, because everyone else was asleep and my daughter was in it. She was, and so that felt to me like a too dad to quit moment, because of those things. It wasn't like a joyous moment, and it wasn't an appreciated moment, but it was a needed moment where I showed up when my daughter needed me. So
100%.
That's beautiful.
The Judge Joe Hochheiser interview. He went from, defending the innocent as a lawyer to now being a judge for domestic violence cases. One of the things we like to do on this show is kind highlight your too dad to quit moment, that moment where you really felt like you were shining as a father, you put your kids first, or you just, something happened and you were like, ah, yes, I'm a dad. So if you can share that with the audience, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit of a homer for the military. So but when my daughter asked me to speak to her class on Veterans Day, and she told her teacher to ask me, and she was like so freaking proud that like her dad was in the military. And as a divorced dad, we are like so worried, like, are my kids going to feel different? Are my kids going to like still like want to be proud to like, oh, I have two houses, and there's like issues like that run through our head. And my daughter was just like so proud to like show off her dad and to really like, this is my dad and he's in the military and he's going to talk to her. And it was just, and she was 9. Like, I'm not talking about she was like 4 years old. She
Right.
was just she and then for my son, it's a little bit, he struggled a little bit with friends even before we were divorced. And for him to bring over friends to my house, that's like, this is my house, like this is my home, like I don't feel like this is weird. This is who I am. And for him to have friends over, so for me it's kind of like a 2-tier. First of all, he has friends to bring over, but also the fact that he wants to bring them here, and he feels comfortable enough and safe that this is a safe space where he's able to come here. And just for whenever my daughter introduces her stepmom, she's like, oh, this is Rebecca. They're like, is that your mom? She's like, no, it's my stepmom. Like, I have a mom and a stepmom. And it's just like, I don't know if I can say fucked up. Like, I didn't screw up. Like I didn't mess up my kids. They're fully functional. They're mostly functional. As much as a 10-year-old and a teenager could be. It's they're comfortable with a divorced dad. They're comfortable now, thank God, with their stepmom, and they're not hiding from it, and they're not afraid of it. And the biggest fear is that you're going to screw up your kids. Your biggest fear is like that you're going to set them up. I mean, Ben, obviously you have your own personal experience with that, but that is the biggest fear. It's like, am I screwing up? And when you find those moments, those few moments, and those moments in between those few moments where like they reinforce that you didn't screw up. And those are my dad moments. Those are absolutely my dad moments where they're proud of their dad and I can be proud of them and they don't feel different, because it's a real struggle.
Brian Schoen, my old high school roommate. He happens to be, I guess, a money manager for the last 20 years or so. He's got 4 kids. We have kind of a segment that we like to do, which is called your too dad to quit moment. A moment where you were like, man, I am the dad. I am shining as a father. This is like one of my favorite moments I'm never going to forget. And we would love for you to share one of those moments with us.
So it's funny because like if I would look at those moments, I don't know that those are like, divorced dad moments.
No,
right?
They're just dad moments.
Right?
It doesn't have to be after
So
the
like,
divorce.
so to me is first of all having my daughter, right? That was my first child 19 years ago. I was 23 years old, and holding her in my hands, and I'd be like, there's literally nothing in this world that I wouldn't do for her. And I think she would actually honestly tell you that today, because she knows that the struggles that she's had, and not good and bad, like, showing up. And my thing to my kids are, you show up for the people you love. And that's not only your parents, that is not only your siblings, but that is for like the people that are like your people. And I believe all of my kids know that. And those are the things that I really want to like give over to them. So it's like holding your first child and feeling that. And I would say it's like it goes, to that, and really in every aspect, like in different stages. When you see a child or your child, struggle in anything, and you just want to be that dad. I'm going to make it better. And sometimes making it better makes it worse, right? Because like you need to teach that child to like be able to fix that problem themselves. But that's the initial gut reaction that I have every single time. Give me that struggle, give me that anxiety, give me that depression, whatever it is, God, give it to me. I will rise above. I don't want that on my child. So I have those moments all the time in terms of like, different struggles that each of them have, and blessed, like there's not a ton of them. My kids are just really good kids, very smart kids, but there are moments in time where they are struggling, and you just like need to like stop what you're doing. Like there's been this year alone, there's been somewhat different struggles in our family dynamic. Some of it was with my children, some of it was with my ex, in terms of like health issues. And I was in Arizona, or I was in Los Angeles, and I needed to cut my 5-day weekend short by 3 days and fly home and show up for my family. And that's what we do. That's what, there isn't a down day. Like if my daughter calls me on a day that she's supposed to be with her mom, she's like, Dad, I need to come to your house. I'd be like, sorry, I got a date. No, like they just come over. Do you need me to pick you up? What do you want? What do you need? How do you need it? What do you like? What ice cream do you want me to pick up? Whatever it is, we show up. And that to me is just being a good dad, a good parent, good human.
To Damian Andrews, he's a veteran of the Australian Army. He is a philanthropist, a CEO of a foundation. He is the AD4C and a father of a 14-year-old boy. We do like to always highlight a moment where we call our Two Dads Quit moment, where you felt like you were an awesome dad, or you did something that you just, that day you looked in the mirror and you were like, man, today I did a dad thing. No one else could beat me. And we'd love to hear one of those moments from you.
It was a moment that, well, the one that stands out was with my son, obviously, but we were at the cinema. We're watching the movie June. So in the movie June, we were watching that, and there's a scene in that where the father and the son, because the son's supposed to take over the role, and they're having this talk about that, and the son and the father's talking to the son and says, look, what you do is up to you. You are already everything that you need to be from my perspective. You're my son. That's all you ever are. That's all I'll ever expect of you as being my son. And we both looked at each other and laughed, because that's what I've been saying to Benjamin for a long time. I said, you can do whatever you want to do. You're already everything you need to be. You're my son. I'll support you, whatever it is that you want to be. It's not for me to tell you how to live your life. You're my son. You're everything you need to be. And we connect over that all the time. So it comes up a lot where we joke about that. So it was a pivotal moment, I think. And as it comes back to that packet of chips we were talking about before, where my dad recognized, that I'm my own man, and I'm always going to be his son, and that's why I call him Dad. I have friends that call their dads by their first name. And that's their choice. Everyone has their own choice. But for me, my dad is my dad, and he'll always be my dad, and I will always be, his son, in the sense of now I'm an adult as well. That's why he can ask me for advice. And so, just accepting, and this comes back to that point we were talking about, not changing, wanting to change the person. I want to encourage my son to be his own man, make his choices. And that was the moment where we kind of laughed and recognized, that we have that relationship. So that was our packet of chips moment. Between myself and my son was, you are my son. That's all you ever need to be. Not only that, June says it's right, so it must be right because it's in the movies.
There you go. You can add it to the clips. Barry Nussbaum. He is a family attorney in Toronto.
Father of 5 beautiful children.
And I'm going to throw one at you that I'm not sure if you're prepared for, but you are a father of 5, and this is a Two Dad to Quit podcast. So we would like you to share one of those moments where you felt that you were too dad to quit, like the dad. You came in, you got 15 kids on your shoulders, or you were just like, man, I did this and I am awesome.
Like because I'm a dad?
Yeah. Your dad moment, proudest dad moment. I took away words from a lawyer.
No, because like I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know. No, I mean, because I work. I mean, I'm a dad, so they. I don't mean I'm a dad. I'm a parent. I'm a parent, so they're. Let me think for a minute.
You can think about it. I can throw another question at you.
1 second. Could I think for 30 seconds or
Yeah, go for it.
Pause it for 30
As
seconds.
long as you're not billing us, it's fine.
Yeah, 30 seconds to the chair, or whatever you say.
Yeah. So I was in my son's school. They had a father and son last Sunday, and he's in Jewish
Father,
schools,
son,
you know.
study.
Yeah,
session?
study. Yeah, have services, and at the so there's certain clothing they have to wear at the services. So they have to wear a hat, which for the purpose. You guys are familiar with this, of course, but it's garb that dignified for the purposes of prayer. So he turned around and I was behind him. And this has happened several times with him. And I looked at him and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing myself. Like he looks like me. He's a better version, thank God, but he's a better version of me. So I look at it. But so that's not what you're looking for in your
That's
question.
exactly what we're looking for.
You're
That's
looking for
exactly
real
it.
accomplishments. But I look very often with this kid, I look
I look at his face right now. No,
That's
your
me.
face. Your
Yeah.
face right now when it lit up when you're telling the
Yeah.
story. That's
when
the
I
moment.
saw that, I was laughing. Like he looks like me.
Joe Burger Boy.
Great dad. He's got a 9-year-old daughter, and he's obviously very devoted to her.
The reason why we actually we came to the name Too Dad to Quit is exactly
Credit, Ben. No problem. I'm good with that.
it is exactly for the dad who's like, why am I still in it? Why am I still fighting for this? Why? Like, it's so much headache, so much pain, so much stress. Like, what's a big deal? You know, like the kid will be fine. Someone will take care of them. It's just, I just can't live like this. I can't be productive with all of this stress, all of this around it. So, in your words, you said, hang in there. Don't worry. That connection is important. Any dads out there. But yeah, so in our world, it's Too Dad to Quit. And on that note, we'd love to have all of our guests share, one of their Too Dad to Quit moments when you felt the most proud of being a father, or you just looked at something that was going on and you're like, I am a dad. I did it. I have become the dad. So if you could share one of those moments with us, that'd be great.
A moment. Well, first of all, you just brought something to mind. Oftentimes we get short-sighted. Like we see, oh, it's going to be too difficult now. I want to go out and party. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Like you're going to be there at your kid's graduation in high school or their bat mitzvah, wherever you are, and you'll be able to look up at yourself and your kid and be like, hey, I've been there all along, or I have this deep connection. Right now, it might seem difficult, but if you look at that big picture, or you look at the finish line, that's what we do as marathon runners. You envision the finish line. That will give you strength through those small moments where you're like doubting yourself or it's going to be too tough. Just think about big picture. This person's going to be adult and they're going to be in a therapist's office down the line dealing with trauma. Do you want them talking to the therapist and be like, oh, my dad abandoned me when I was like 4 and he just moved to Kansas? Like, think about that. Like, you can do better than that. But you're asking me for a moment of when I felt like pride as a dad.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, when in Tony Robbins, when they have like these meditations and he says, think about the best times of your life, I think about my marathons, but seeing her on the sidelines, she's been at Chicago, New York, holding a sign for me and looking up at me. Like, I didn't have that growing up, but how amazing is that to see like your dad being one of those, and then I get a kiss her on her forehead to continue running. Like, there's been that. There's also been like dark moments where, say something, I was like stuck somewhere, and then I had my kid's picture with me, and I'm like, I love you. This love is bringing me through all this stuff, because as you know, there's no love like there's a love for a dad to their kid. So there's been both sides of it where I just held on to that, and I'm like, this is so precious. As dating as divorcees, like There's gonna be a lot of failure, but your one constant is your love with your kid, and no one could take that away from you.
Brian A. Vandiver. He is a father, a divorced father, but more importantly, he's an advocate and a lobbyist, and it's trying to make shared custody kind of the default for parents going through divorce, and not where it matters who's the mother, who's the father. Just equal parenting should be the default in the system.
He's happily remarried. He's got a blended family. He's got a busy law practice.
We love to have our guests share their too dad to quit moment. That moment where they were like, I'm a dad, I'm doing the dad thing, and I could not be prouder. And, you just feel like you're the coolest guy in the world. If, these moments happen all the time, we would love for you to share one of those moments with us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's let me think about that one. That's a tough one. I've had some really good moments with all three of my children and my stepchildren. I think family vacations are always fun, and we've tried to, rather than go real crazy with material presents at Christmas and birthdays, try to invest that money for memories and do trips instead. So we do kind of big trips for us, whether that's to the beach or Great Wolf Lodge or
Nice.
St. Louis. And then my two older ones I've taken to recently New York City and DC. And so kind of building those experiences and watching them see things for the first time, like the Lincoln Memorial or the Statue of Liberty or the Arch in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Coolest
Coolest elevator,
like
by the way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That elevator's insane. So for anybody who hasn't been to St. Louis and been to the Arch, basically the elevator is like an egg shape, and it just goes up to the left, up to the left, up to the left, and you're in it, and you're like, what the heck is going on? But then you get up to the top, and the thing is, like, if it's windy, it's swaying in the wind while you're up there.
Yes, it is an experience. Cool. So I think those moments collectively, when they look at me and say, this is cool, this is a neat experience, and you kind of make that bonding moment, share that moment. And even if it's just like I said, I love fishing and putting them in the John boat, and we're out there, just me and them, and having that moment as the sun sets. Those you don't have to spend a lot of money to have those moments, but you can have those moments with just out fishing.
Beautiful.
100%. Yochanan Pollock. He's a therapist. He's also a divorced father. He has a super blended family,
which means he has children from a previous marriage. She has children from a previous marriage, and they have children together.
Actually, I want to cut straight to the too dad to quit moment, because
wow, okay.
You've been studying.
Cut to the chase.
Ben is the video editor here, so among men.
Oh, it could come out at the end.
Hats that he wears. So Ben, is that okay with you?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I'll tell you. You mentioned biking, and you remember that I'm a biker. Well, we could have several moments, but one real moment is being a single father of three. My oldest was 11, my middle was 7, and then I had a 5-year-old girl. So 2 boys and a girl, and living in a tiny 2-bedroom, really 1.5-bedroom apartment here in Nachlat Achim near Gan Sacher. And the way we got around was bikes, and we would be biking everywhere. Okay, everybody, get on your gear and helmets and ticks or whatever it is, knapsacks, bags, and water bottles in the holsters. And we would be biking around the whole neighborhood. So it became quite a thing to see Yochanan and his kids, like the duck and the ducklings, everyone's biking. And I had a little seat on my back for my 5-year-old. And that's how we operated. So
that is awesome. That is awesome.
Yep, I'm known as the guy around town that rollerbladed a stroller with one kid in the seat, one kid on the second seat, another kid on the step part of it, and I would rollerblade them in the morning and rollerblade them back. And every once in a while, you get like one message on Facebook: "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm having the time of my life. This is awesome." Aaron Jeter, not Derek Jeter. He has actually written a children's book, which is how we found him, called Weekends and Summers with Dad. And he's a history teacher. He's got an interesting situation with his children with custody, and it inspired him to write a story. Your Too Dad to Quit moment, one of those moments where you were like, wow, I'm a dad. This is amazing. And I looked at my kids at that moment, and I just felt so much pride that I was, this kick butt dad. So if you can share one of those moments with us, we'd really appreciate it.
Well, like I said, I mentioned I like to run, and sometimes I don't think my kids have appreciated that just as much just now, but I think they appreciate exercise because they see both me do it and their mom, she runs as well. But I really wanted to run for time. So I think my daughter and I think one winter I said, look, I want to push just around the block twice. That's a mile. And, I want you to just kind of push your hardest. And I think she got to like 8:11, like 9 years old. And that's a pretty fast clip for her age. And she was dead tired. And I just kind of looked at her and said, I'm proud of you for, everything that you've done. And then my son, when he was, his first year doing judo or jujitsu, whatever, and he was just in a kid's class. And I can send you guys the video, but he pushed this little kid. It was like they're on this like mat. And he pushed the kid off. And I'm glad I got that on video because he likes to see himself strong in a way. And the judo instructor says, "I'm proud of you." And so and then the last one is that when my daughter had told me that my son had issues, meeting people on the playground. I said to myself, all right, I'm going to have to find a way to solve this. So I took him to a playground in my old neighborhood, a lot of city kids. And I said, go out and meet somebody. He said, no, I'm scared. I said, you better not come back until you go play and meet some friends. I'm telling you right now. He said, Dad, I said, there's about 10 kids out there on that playground. Go meet them. Go say hello. And I kind of sit back and, about a half hour later, he didn't want to go. And then the kids are, he's having fun on the playground with the kids. And I got back in the car. I said, see, you don't need your sister to introduce you to people on the playground. You're your own person. You did a great job today, son. So, so I like to use those as wins.
Yeah.
And so
I thought I'd share one of mine. So I was with my daughter and her zipper got stuck and she wanted to take off her jacket so badly and she couldn't do it. And she came over to me and she's like, I can't get this off. And she just was about to cry. And it took me like a minute and a half and I was able to wiggle the zipper open and I opened it up and I was not expecting it. She gave me the biggest hug she's given me in a very long time. And so I just wanted to say, those Too Dad to Quit moments, they don't have to be the biggest things. They don't have to be, taking them on a trip to a roller coaster. It could just be a little thing of fixing their zipper and you will be their hero. Arnie Goldfein, he has a very interesting story of addiction, which alcohol, which apparently started very, very young. And he had 6 kids and that was the time when he, decided to go and figure this out and go into recovery. And he's been sober for 37 years. We do have something that we call the Too Dad to Quit moment.
The what?
We want the Too Dad to Quit moment.
Okay.
A moment that you can share with us where you were just so proud to be a dad and you just felt like, wow, I am the dad, man. This is awesome. And if you could share one of those moments with us, we really appreciate it.
You're gonna bring me to tears. I don't know that I was ever in that point. I think that
I don't like using the term "I am the dad" because there's a lot of ego and arrogance involved in that. I
That's
am.
interesting.
Say that again.
So that's interesting, but if it wasn't 1 a.m, I would go down that route. But
We can always
maybe for
revisit
round
it.
2.
No, we can always revisit this anytime,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
I'm yours.
Round 2. Anyway, carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I guess it happened recently, and I'm trying to remember exactly the story because I don't have linear memory too well anymore. But just Abba, what can we do for you? Abba, what's going on? Abba, this. I had surgery. I had hernia surgery back at the end of December, and someone was there to pick me up. Someone they cooked for me. It's just this overall sense of feeling that my kids love me and my kids care. And my need is to hold on to that because I don't hold on to believing that somebody loves me just for who I am. That's my struggle. That's something that I go through on a day-to-day basis. And it's difficult. It really is. But again, by being the respectful person that I am and being present for them and allowing them to be who they are, the way they are, allows me to feel, I don't look, I can receive what they give. I'm not looking to take anything from them. And in that, I've gotten blessings upon blessings upon blessings.
Wow.
Joe Templin. He's written a book. He's a martial artist. He's a marathoner. And he's also a father of special needs children. For you to share one of your Too Dad to Quit moments when you felt the proudest as a dad and something happened and you would just look back and you pulled up your chin up higher and you're like, man, I am the dad.
Okay, I got 2 examples. So from my 2 younger sons. So last summer, we went down to the family cabin to help my father out. My father's in his early 80s. And this cabin's up on the top of the mountain, and it's got a septic tank and leach field and all that. And so we had to dig up the septic tank. Now, this hasn't been dug up since I was a little kid, so 40 years. Okay, and it's down about a foot, and it's under all these rocks, and there's roots, growing all over the place. So, and we didn't know where it was either, so we had to dig up a whole big section. So we hand dug for about 13 hours that day.
Wow.
And my then 14-year-old dug for like 5 or 6 hard hours. Like swinging a pickaxe, really went to town, really did a good job. And when we were finally all done, my dad is like, make sure you tell middle one, that he did a really good job. And we're driving home and I gave him chocolate milk because that's the bribe that we always give my kids. And he looked right at me. He's like, I worked like a Templin today. I'm
Nice.
like, yes, you did. So that was one. The other one was my youngest one had been up to Boy Scout camp in the fall. And, it was a little cool and everything. They stayed in the tents and everything. So I pick him up to bring him home. And he always, after Boy Scout camp, wants to stop and eat and go have breakfast. So we stopped at Denny's, I think it was. And we're there waiting to get seated. And they've got a collection bin there for No Kid Goes Hungry. Okay, collecting money for this. And he looks around, makes sure nobody sees him, reaches into his pocket, pulls out all his money and puts it in.
Wow.
But he made sure nobody saw him. So he was doing an act of charity, but it wasn't for any public recognition or anything like that. It was because it was the right thing to do. So those 2 things, those are some of the high points. It's like, all right, my job here is done.
Beautiful.
It's amazing. Matthew P. Hoffman. Matthew is from Greenville, South Carolina, and is a dad to 3 children, 25, 22, and 13. Matthew is also a national speaker and the author of The Kick-Ass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. Being that this is the Too Dad to Quit podcast, and you have your wonderful children, we do like our guests to share their Too Dad to Quit moment, a moment where you were just so proud to be a dad and you were just feeling, man, I am awesome. I am the dad. I can just look at them and I'm beaming from pride. If you can share a story like that, we'd really appreciate it.
Sure, that's going to be hard to pick because I've got some great kids, and two are older, as you know. You said earlier,
Yeah.
25 and 22, and then one's 13, the caboose. He's still home. You know, there when we lived in Tampa, we had that first child I just talked to you about. There was a German woman named Margit, and she was kind of an adopted grandmother. My mom passed away at a very early age, right before my wife and I got married. So they were kind of robbed of having my mom around. Beautiful, wonderful woman. And so Margaret worked with my mom, and she came to help us out with, my wife, baby, housekeeping. She kind of did some light housekeeping, help with the baby so my wife could have a life because I was working full time in the restaurant business. And so we kind of adopted this woman as the grandmother over the years, and my kids were part of that, Miss Margaret. And, she nicknamed them and changed their diapers. And so now fast forward the 25-year-old, right? My daughter's living back in Tampa, and Margaret's in an independent living facility there. And my daughter goes with her boyfriend, and they take her out to lunch. They take her grocery shopping. They buy her flowers. She loves beer and pizza. They'll take her a 6-pack of beer, and she'll have them over for appetizers. And, oh, can't you come over? And she's built a relationship because she knows how much she did for her. And so here she is out serving and acting like the parent and the mature one now. So as a dad, to see your child have that servant leadership, which is huge to me and my wife, and we certainly model that for our kids, and my other kids do it as well. But to see her do that on her own time, her own money, maintain that I get calls from Margaret, oh, Olivia is so amazing. You'll never guess what she and John did. And so seeing my daughter take that mantle up and really get joy in making sure she's all right, and seeing her, she has no family in the area. They're all on the West Coast of the US. So that was, and that's matured over the last 9 months, and she's been back there living and working in Tampa. So
That's
super
amazing.
proud as a dad. And it's less about, we certainly modeled that for her, but she's taken up the mantle and is beautifully demonstrated. It just tells to me what a, wonderful young woman she is.
Yeah. And also in your own retirement, you have something to look forward to. So that's always comforting.
No doubt. My kids won't abandon me, right?
Exactly. Pizzalo Rothstein is a father of 4 daughters from his first marriage, 3 sons, and a daughter in his second marriage, and 1 stepdaughter from his current wife's first marriage. Pizzalo is a certified family mediator and divorce coach, and the founder of an organization called Todos. You touched on a lot of things here that, are the basis of us starting this podcast, Too Dad to Quit. And that same note, we like our guests to always share their Too Dad to Quit moment, a moment when you felt that you were an amazing father and you felt all that dad pride, and you just saw a scene in front of you and you were like, man, I am the dad. And, we want you really to share that moment with us. You can.
Well, I'm going to burst your bubble here. And, I think if you really want to live as, as the dad, you have to make those types of moments every single day. There's no such thing as the moment. There are moments every single day that so I mean, I shared you, like, I'm 46 already, and like I'm close to, I feel like I'm close to 50, and like time, like it's just like it flies by, even just like week to week, like you go like Sunday to Sunday, like, oh my God, like where did the whole week go? And I think that you don't want to be one of those people who's kind of just like coasting. You want to be one of those dads who, like when you see your kid in the morning, or when you're putting your kid to bed at night, that just pause for that moment and be like, wow, like I'm so blessed. I think for me, like those moments are really about being able to enjoy the blessing that is being a dad, more than it is about like taking pride, like, oh, I'm the dad, like wow, like hey God, thank you for blessing me with these amazing kids.
Beautiful.
With Ryan Lexer. Ryan is a ex-pro basketball player turned VP of sales for a publicly traded ad tech company. He is the father to a son 17 and a daughter 15. This is a Too Dad to Quit podcast. So we do ask of our guest to share a Too Dad to Quit moment, a moment when they're proudest as a father, and kind of, you know, it was that moment where they're, you know, you just feel it inside you that, you know, I'm doing something right, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway because, you know, I am the dad and I'm going to stick around and I'm going to be there to push my kid, even if they don't want it. You know, one of those moments with us.
So, I don't know if this is the right context, but I would take it the other way. I mean, the two dad moment for me that I'm just proud of is, you know, the one that really stands out to me is when my son quit basketball, and just it took a lot from me because I was envisioning him being in the NBA and him buying me a nice house and, you know, all the trappings that come with that, and what would his NBA nickname be, and is he going to be the next this and that. And when he, you know, decided it wasn't for him, it took a big amount of me swallowing ego and pride and coming to the realization that, like, listen, that's your dream, it's not his, and he has to find his own path. So that was a huge two dad to something moment. And the other was my daughter. When I first started hearing her sing, and she was like off in this other room, and she was like doing, like, you know, kind of Whitney Houston type high and low, and like that diva kind of, you know what I mean, like those up and down kind of things, just singing a normal
hitting
song.
the notes.
I'm just like washing dishes, like, what the F is that? Like, where did that come from? Holy cow. And, you know, it's just like, listen, you got something, you know, you gotta keep doing it. She's, you know, now she says, stop being my manager, just be my dad. So that's probably more about what you're talking about, where I'm trying to push her and trying to realize that, oh yeah, I need to be a dad and not like a manager.
It's, you know, to me, it's all the same thing. It's listening to your kids and giving them what they need rather than what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Is to share a Too Dad to Quit moment. A moment where you've been proudest of yourself as a father, and you just sat back and were like, man, I'm the dad.
So I was going to say that you asked me, like, when I feel like I'm the man or I'm the dad. Something that Arnie said in his podcast, I really related to when he talked about, he felt that
your ego.
Your ego, your ego. But I really love what he said, because I like that idea that, you know, I don't really, there's nothing wrong with, you know, there is a place for an ego in a healthy way. It's important to have a healthy ego as well. Like, you know, we shouldn't, that's what I was talking about before about self-deprecating or being the butt of jokes. We should have a healthy aspect to our ego. And ego is not a bad thing. It's not our enemy. So I'm not suggesting that, you know, we shouldn't have that. Again, leaving aside the whole yogi discussions about the idea of ego and self. But be that as it may, at the same token, I don't, it's hard for me to ever sort of categorize myself as the dad or the man, because I don't even feel like I'm well suited to ever make that decision. I always say, when people ask me, you know, one of the most common questions I get are, how are the kids? I probably get that I get that a lot. How are your kids doing? And my answer is, you know, seem great, but that's a question you'll have to ask them. I don't feel like I'm ever suited to answer any question on their behalf, either about their own welfare or about me as a dad. Like, how can I go and say what they think of me as a dad? I could certainly do my best to be the best dad I can be. And that also means failing. Like, I fail a shitload as a dad, certainly in the beginning, right away. And I think a lot of our guests have talked about it. I mean, I was, you know, I struggled emotionally. I to this day, I have my challenges and my struggles. I've got up days, less up days. It's certainly better than it was, for sure. But, you know, I've had my struggles, and so I can't comment on how that affects children, right? we try to be our best that we can be. So that's the sort of longer answer. The short answer is, because I see you're doing the sneaky watch peek. There's a Curb Your Enthusiasm. We talked about the sneaky watch peek. Anyway, but no, you did tell me you have to go at 8:30, which it is now. But I did have a too dad to quit moment where my son's soccer ball was out of air, and I actually had bought a pump.
I just bought a pump today.
Oh, there you go. So this was interesting. So I bought a soccer pump for Bubkiss, and it's been sitting in my closet for like a year. I never needed it. My son's ball was out of air, and I was like, yes, he needs the pump. So I go to pump the ball, and of course I fuck it up because I think you're supposed to put the pin in first, or you don't put the pin in. I don't remember. I did something where I put the pin in the wrong way. Like, how do you
poked a hole? You poked a hole with the pin.
Right. How do you fuck up pumping up a ball? But I did it. Anyway, the bottom line is I didn't give up. Like, my son had to go to school, but I found a way to use a different pump that I had for the swimming pool, which you've witnessed me pumping up the pool that I bought for my kids. And I put that air from that, it's an automatic air blower, onto the pin, into the ball, and I was able to pump up the ball. And I remember thinking, like, this is a too dad to quit moment for Ben. Like, I literally wanted to quit on something as simple as blowing up a soccer ball. I was like, no, I am going to freaking do this, and I'm going to get it done before he goes to school. And that goes to show you, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be building.
It doesn't have to be a roller coaster.
It doesn't have to be. So now we've come full circle. It doesn't have to be a roller coaster. It can be something as simple as blowing up a soccer ball. And that's not to say it's because I think that deserves the biggest kudos in the world. But you know what? I didn't give up. I got it done. And everything came together. I had bought the pump thinking I may need it. I had another pump that I was using, and it all came together. So that's my moment. And feel free to share yours, but you have shared many of yours in the past. So
awesome.
I know you've
yes.
got to go.
So I have two. One, I had an old student of mine over for the weekend, and she was talking to my son. Everyone went to sleep, and we were just talking, and she was telling this story about how I was so dedicated, and I would drive to her house and convince her parents to let her go away for the events that we were running. And without me, she wouldn't be the person that she was today, blah, blah, blah. And my son looks at her, he goes, yeah, that's my dad. Of course he did that. And I was like, wow, I've never heard him talk like that about me, ever.
Wow. Nice.
Ever. So that was really cool. And the other one was, I saw on Friday that one of the local groups someone was donating 2 twin beds, but like, not like the tiny mattress ones, like the full spring with a feather top on top of that. And I only needed one because my son's been asking for one, but they had 2 and they wanted to take them together. So I got 2 of those. The kids came in and I said, hey, I have surprises for you. And they screamed for probably 45 minutes. Wow. How cool these mattresses were. And this morning was the first night they stepped on it. And I said, hey, how was it? And my daughter was like, that's the best sleep I've ever had.
Which one? How old is she?
She is 11. She was like, I don't want to leave. I'm staying here forever. So that was great. Yeah. So
Sweet.
Good. Hey man, it's the little moments and the little things. Both of those things cost me nothing. And,
well, the mattress is free, right? Okay.
Also free. Free's the way to go if you can do it. We really hope you enjoyed the Too Dad to Quit moment episode. It was really interesting and lovely to hear all the different ways that dads are, inspired by their children and step up when it needs to. And as you can see, everyone has their own little take on what inspires them and what they count as their Too Dad to Quit moment. And we want to hear your Too Dad to Quit moments. Please let us know in the comments. Please share this episode. Let's inspire as many people as possible. And we can't wait to get started and share with you season 2. We have some really amazing guests coming on, and we may take off next week, but don't worry, we are going to come back full force for season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Too Dad to Quit moments, like you said, Ben, really were so diverse and really just honest. And, even there were some that were somewhat resistant, I would say, to even sharing one, or some couldn't even come up with one. But once they were prodded a little bit with your expert sales techniques, Ben, they really were able to come up with not only a Too Dad to Quit moment, but some really fantastic ones. Ones that definitely I know for myself made me think about my own personal Too Dad to Quit moments. And there's no shortage of them. Like you always say, Ben, there's moments all the time. You just have to be aware of it and be mindful of it. So again, Ben, this was your brainchild, this Too Dad to Quit moment idea. I think it's really taken off. And it also, I'm grateful to it personally, because like I said, it makes me try and be mindful of these moments all the time and not take anything for granted. I certainly don't take for granted that I am a dad, and I am very, very thankful for that. I don't think a day goes by without me being grateful for my children. So thanks, man.
And thank you all for listening. This has been Too Dad to Quit. Too Dad to Quit on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, toodadtoquit.com. Please reach out to us. We do want to share your story. And please reach out to us so we can get you in part of season 2.
Thank you for listening to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. Available at toodadtoquit.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.